a body in a suitcase. In the autumn of 2020 in Tehran, a man steps out of a taxi and strides into the police station, dragging a substantial suitcase with him. With a heavy heart, he reveals that his wife's lifeless body is concealed within that suitcase, and he shares the harrowing journey of bringing her 1,000 kilometers to Tehran. Written by Elham Ghoreishi. In the waning days of summer in 2022, as the streets of Tehran gracefully transformed into a canvas adorned with the golden and amber foliage of the plantain trees, a slender man, his raven black hair tousled and sporting a shadow of stubble, alighted from a taxi carrying a sizable obsidian suitcase. After settling the taxi fare, he made his way into the police station, nestled within the heart of Vanek Square, suitcase in tow. Approaching the soldier stationed at the police station, he urgently requested to meet the police chief, his voice laden with desperation. In a shattered tone, he confessed to a gruesome crime. He had taken the life of his wife, whose body now lay concealed within the depths of a somber black suitcase he pointed to, before collapsing into inconsolable sobs, his hands covering his grief-stricken face. He revealed that he had transported his wife's dismembered body from Mashhad to Tehran using public transportation, an arduous journey spanning roughly 1,000 kilometers. Without delay, a specialized team tasked with investigating this unusual criminal case swung into action. The identification documents the man had in his possession established his identity as Mujtaba Ahmadi, a 36-year-old individual born in Mashhad. A brief span of time later, he found himself seated within the confines of the interrogation room, where he promptly requested both a cigarette and a cup of tea before commencing with the narration of his tale.
Hey, I swear, I ain't a bad guy. I can't figure out why all this went down. I loved my wife, man. We were crazy in love, got hitched and everything. Sitting here now, I'm filled with regret. If I could turn back time, I'd do anything to make sure my son doesn't have to grow up without his mom.
He crushed the glowing tip of his cigarette in the ashtray, as though harboring some unspoken resentment towards its inevitable end. Then, with a sigh, he began to recount his tale.
Her name was Sama, my wife's name, that is. I've been head over heels for her since our high school days. We were neighbors, part of the older crowd in Mashhad, lucky enough to live behind Imam Riza's shrine. Thankfully, our life wasn't too shabby. My old man worked as a carpenter, and we had a small carpentry shop that covered our bills. I'm the baby of the family. My two older sisters and a brother were already hitched. When I hit 24, my mom wouldn't let up about me getting married. She had her eye on a girl from some distant family. But I told my mom that I've got my eye on a girl and I want to marry her. It's Sama, the girl next door. I didn't spill the beans about us secretly dating for years. We even picked out a name for our future kid back then. Even though both of us come from religious families in Mashhad, we weren't all that strict. That's what I liked about Sama. We'd sneak off to parties together, and there Sama would let loose, taking off her hijab, and we'd dance and have a few drinks. I didn't want my future wife to be super religious. I loved Sama because she was laid back, and we shared some amazing moments. But you know, out of respect for our elders and family, she'd always wear her hijab around them and follow all the religious rules. Same here. Sama's dad is just your regular hard-working guy. She was the oldest among their 5 siblings. Our wedding was arranged, and we snagged a little place, a good distance away from both our folks' homes, to start our life together. Our life was awesome, full of understanding, and we were on cloud 9. My income easily covered our regular expenses. I even chipped in for Sama's fave classes. She wanted to become a hairdresser, so I had her back. When I got home at night, dinner was always ready. We'd chat about everything. Thursday nights were a blast. We'd sip on Sama's homemade vodka and have our own little party. She'd whip up yogurt with cucumber chips and olives, which is a northern Iran specialty. On Fridays, the weekend, we'd go see our families. Those were some of the best days of my life, no doubt. Just good times all around. So, a year passed, and once Sama got her hairdressing diploma, she sold some of her gold. I had my savings too. We even borrowed a bit of cash, and with all that, we rented a little spot for her to open her hair salon. Now, anybody who's been in business knows the deal. The first year in business, most of what you make goes right back into advertising, and whatever cash comes in, you pretty much throw it back into the business. It's like the first year's earnings are meant to cover the startup expenses. But things took a rough turn. Right when we kick-started Sama's hair salon, Iran's economy started going downhill fast. The price of gold shot up like crazy. If Sama had just held onto her gold, stayed home and taken it easy, she'd have still made a nice chunk of profit. But now, besides selling the gold and launching the business, we had to take out a loan. Sama was hustling day and night to make up for the loss. Basically, what she was doing was just covering the rent and the loan. I kept reassuring her that if we kept at it for a few years, things would get better. Sama was a total pro at what she did, and she had a bunch of loyal customers. Her situation was looking up, no doubt about it. But check this out, something else went down. You see, Mashhad is a pretty religious city. And sir, you must recall a few years back, the Imam of Mashhad dropped the bomb that women couldn't hit up beauty salons. That led the government to shut down loads of hair salons in Mashhad, and Sama's place got caught in the crossfire. Customers and all, it was a goner. This whole ordeal really took a toll on Sama's emotional well-being, and it put a strain on our relationship. She was in a slump for a while, feeling down and disheartened. Losing a significant portion of her capital and being jobless left her with a lot of time on her hands, and not in a good way. She was pretty persistent about us relocating to Tehran, convinced that it would offer us better prospects. And as it often goes, this discussion marked the beginning of a heated dispute between me and my wife. The frustration, the uncertainty about the future, and the differing opinions on what to do next started causing friction in our relationship. Sama used to tell me that life in Tehran was different. Women had more freedom, beauty salons were thriving, and there were more job opportunities and amenities. Meanwhile, she was also pregnant with our son, which made her think even more about the future. Sama believed that Tehran was a better place to bring up our child. She'd grown weary of the religious atmosphere in our hometown and longed for a change, feeling that Tehran offered a more liberal and promising environment for our family. No doubt about it, Sama was spot on. But no matter how much I tried to make her see the challenges of moving to a big city like Tehran, she just couldn't get it. Sure, the job market might be better in Tehran, but the living costs there are through the roof, way more than in Mashhad. At the time, I was working in my dad's carpentry workshop with my brother. So, what was I supposed to do if we up and moved to Tehran? How could I even think about renting both a carpentry workshop and a place to live there? It just didn't add up. After our son was born, the bickering between me and Sama settled down for a good couple of years. During that time, as a mom, Sama discovered ways to keep herself entertained and occupied right from home, and she was content once more. She kick-started an Instagram page where she shared tips on everything from parenting to cooking, hairdressing, skincare, and more. Basically, she became a full-fledged blogger, and to be honest, she managed to rack up quite a following. After some time, she had such a huge following that small clothing and makeup brands started hitting her up for ads. It's kinda wild, but there were weeks where her earnings beat out what I made in a whole month, if you can believe it. But that happiness didn't stick around for long, you see. Instagram and all those similar apps got the boot, made illegal and filtered, you know how it goes. True, some folks managed to buy those filter breaker thingies and still squeeze into Instagram, but it wasn't the same. Sama's earnings got sliced in half because of it. However, she was one determined soul and kept at it, didn't give up. One day, your pals over in Mashhad decided to crash our place and nab my wife for supposedly spreading decadent Western culture. Off she went to the police station. She promised to stay off the internet after that. And I'm sure you can guess what happened next. The whole talk about moving to Tehran started up once more. For a good while, my little son couldn't shake the memory of the police raiding our place. He'd burst into tears when he saw a cop on the street. It was tough, sir. During those times, our life took a nosedive. I had to shoulder all the household bills, and with the plummeting value of the rial on the world stage, we all felt the pinch. Hardly anyone was looking for woodworking to spruce up their place or build a new kitchen cabinet. Rents were soaring, and buying a kilo of meat for the house was a real stretch. We used to have this little tradition of throwing a party, just the two of us, every Thursday night. But ever since our son came into the picture and started growing up, we'd drop him off at one of his grandma's places on Thursday night and pick him up on Fridays. However, it had been ages since we could afford to grab some vodka on Friday nights, and our celebrations turned into sober affairs. It was all about chatting and maybe having a heated argument or two. Until these glassy drugs slipped into our dual parties. Man, I wish I'd never gone down that road, never gave it a shot that first time. You, sir, you're in the law enforcement biz, so you know the deal. Everything's getting pricier in this country, except for the industrial drugs. They're everywhere, cheaper than ever, just lying around in the parks. They're like an escape for folks fed up with the skyrocketing prices and never-ending hunger. It didn't take long for our use of crystal, meaning the drug, to go from every Thursday to every night. At first you think it's gonna make the pain go away and bring some good times. When you start, you feel all drowsy and spaced out. But after a couple of weeks, you figure out what this stuff does to your brain. Man, we used to pull that stunt right in front of our little one. And you can bet your bottom dollar it led to some never-ending arguments, non-stop bickering, and endless fights. Sama wasn't keen on getting our son involved, so most nights of the week, our kiddo stayed over at either her parents' or mine. Then came that cursed night, a Tuesday of all things. I rushed home from work, eager to get my fix. But when I got there, I found out that Sama had been busy using drugs before I arrived, specifically crystal. As soon as I walked in, he was already griping. He was yelling and even got physical, pounding on my chest. At first I ignored him and went ahead to smoke. But then, I don't know what came over me, like some devil took hold. I started marching toward him, wrapped my hands around his throat, and squeezed with everything I had. And when I finally came to my senses, it had been a full day since I took his life, and I was sitting on top of my wife's lifeless body. The next day, I rang up my folks and had them look after our kid for a while. Then, I swung by the workshop, grabbed my carpentry tools, and, well, you can piece together the rest. So, here I am, sir, ready to face whatever punishment's coming my way.
As the man's narrative reached this juncture, the case interrogator chimed in, saying, "There's one thing I'm not quite getting. Care to explain why you hauled this massive suitcase all the way to Tehran?" The man locked eyes with the policeman and said firmly,
Dude, I had this thought, you know? I figured Tehran's got a fancier graveyard for my wife's body, and maybe the jails there are a bit cozier than the ones in our hometown.
The end. Elham Ghoreishi.
Be sure to like our content and stay tuned by subscribing.